The thing that captivated me most about Edisto, South Carolina, was the abundance of live oak trees. The way the moss would sway in the wind and glow from the sun was hypnotic. I found myself wanting to lay down on a blanket and just stare up at the treetops. But I'm not gonna lie, the complexity of these trees was intimidating to paint. I finally decided to paint a dead live oak tree, and believe me, the irony isn't lost on me. What struck me the most about these trees wasn't really the foliage or even really the moss, but it was their twisted, tangled structure. I wanted to try and capture that. As usual, I like to map in the shadow patterns when I'm painting in plein air. After I get those quick moving shadows blocked in, I continue to map out the rest of the darks within the composition. I alternated between dark blue and dark brown for the darks and shadow pattern, and I did this in order to create a warm and cool variation within the dark values, just so they don't fall flat. When I'm working in plein air, I typically like to work on the subject first, like the main subject. And one, it's because time is of the essence, but I find that working subject first, I can easily incorporate the background as I'm working. So say if I use a certain color in the tree and I see it could be incorporated in the background somewhere, that's when I'll do it. And it helps to create a sense of cohesion in the piece. And another reason I do this is because I want to make sure that I keep the one thing in my mind that first drew me to the scene. If I try and show how special the whole scene is, then nothing really ends up special. I try and I really let that one thing stand out. And I know you're thinking, well, yeah, that's the focal point. But it's not really the same as focal point, because this one thing could be lighting, mood, energy, or an endless number of ideas. So I edit the composition to where everything included in the composition supports this one concept. If something is superfluous to that concept, I'll just leave it out. Typically, I try and work pretty intuitively, aside from getting those darks mapped in first. But I remember that when I was at this point in the painting was really craving a strong horizontal to balance out all the verticals from the hanging moss. The way you could see the marsh peek through was also something really special. Initially, I was torn between having the form of the tree be the main thing to focus on, or the beautiful colors of the marsh peeking through in the background. But because I decided on focusing on the tree, I kept the attention off the background by making the marsh colors simple horizontal marks. One of the hardest things about painting dead or naked branches is the order in which you paint the branches in the sky. I've found that the best way to do this is to first paint the branches of the tree and then go in and paint the sky around them. Although it can be tedious, it doesn't have to be perfect, and you can always go back and redefine those branches if you cut in too far with the sky. The main thing to avoid, and I stress this, the main thing to avoid is to paint the sky first and add the branches over on top. While this will be quicker, the resulting color will be muddy and it will cause you to have to overwork the branches, and you'll end up spending more time trying to undo what you've done than if you were to just paint around them. Once I get the sky mapped in, I begin working on the foreground, and I always keep in mind how each mark that I make is supporting the tree. When I start working on the background, I really try and make each mark intentional and simplify as much as I can by merging shapes and values. The background is simply there to further inform the viewer about the tree. At the final stages of the painting, I'm focusing on the relationship of shapes, edges, value, color, saturation, and just making sure that all of the pieces of the metaphorical painting puzzle fit together. And I also think about how I can further showcase the intention of this painting. I want the viewer to see the beauty in this old dead tree just as I did. I want them to wonder what animals are living in its hollowed out branches. And I want them to ponder how something dead can be so captivating and in such a green, fertile setting. But most of all, I wanted to inspire them to find their own meaning and beauty in it. Here is the piece after my plein air session. While I do love it, I want to fix the gradient of the sky. I need to lighten that area around the cluster of branches on the right. And I probably could have further simplified the background shrubbery as well. But other than that, I am proud of the way it turned out. And something cool that I didn't realize is that I subconsciously used dynamic symmetry to map out the armature of the painting. And if you're interested, I could also do a video on that. Anyway, if you watched this far, I really appreciate it. And I managed to get a few plein air videos filmed during this short window of beautiful autumn color that we're having. So stay tuned for that.